Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Kingfisher Knits podcast. My name is Madeline Windsor and you can find me on Ravelry as Madeline Windsor, which is written as all one word, but I'm Kingfisher Knits on Instagram. I will put all of the links in the description box below for where you can find me, and I also have the Kingfisher Knits group on Ravelry. So those of you who've watched the previous episodes and have come back, first of all, thank you very much to you. You, again, maybe didn't expect to see me again quite so soon. I was away for a few days in Portugal for a wedding. We made it into a bit of a longer weekend with my family. It was a great fun. I think when you only go away for a few days, at least me, I never feel, oh, I'm happy to be home like you do when you go away for a longer time. But anyway, we're just very glad and grateful for the wonderful time that we had in Portugal, seeing other friends as well and just spending time together as a family. And I just decided to try and squeeze in a really quick episode now, because whenever I find that I can grab a moment, I feel like I should record something, otherwise too much time will pass. So anyway, again, if you're returning, having watched my other episodes, thank you very much. And if you're new and this is the first one, there are only a couple to go back and catch up on if you fancy. But I'm not going to tell you what you have to watch. I also wanted to say, sorry, still fairly new to this, that the show notes for this episode, I will add a link in the description box below to my Ravelry group where I post, for each episode I post the show notes. And there I really try very hard to link everything that I talk about in terms of, dyers, patterns, websites and what have you. So I did have a couple of finished objects I wanted to show you. Neither of them did I finish in this last week since I last spoke to you, but they're both things which are relevant. The first are a pair of socks, which I knit for a friend of mine. I don't believe she's going to watch this, but basically as soon as I'm done with this podcast, I'm finally going to weave in the ends. I finished these a while ago, so that's kind of disgraceful, but I'm not a big fan of weaving in ends. Anyway, and package them up and send them to her for her birthday. So these are a pair of socks. And these are knit out of the Regia yarn in the Arnie and Carlos design line. I knit these two at a time on 2.5mm higher steels, and I just did I do a German short row heel often when I'm doing two at a time if I'm not doing an afterthought heel. I don't much enjoy doing a heel flap and gusset it when doing two at a time. And you can't really see here, especially because of the patterning, but for a while now I, especially on socks that I'm giving to somebody else and I wasn't sure about, how different heels might fit them, and especially for non-knitters that I tend to find don't like the look a huge amount of a heel flap and gusset, I decided that I would try and make a little more room just in case for the heel, and I would add like a tiny mini heel flap. So I do a couple of row pairs back and forth just on the heel stitches before doing my heel, and then I kind of pick up those stitches when I come back round to join again in the round, and then you just have to do a few decreases and you end up with like a tiny mini gusset. You see that little triangle there? And I know, if somebody wants to know instructions for how to do that, although I did it myself, I do know, having watched Mina, the Knitting Expat podcast, that she also made the same adjustment at some point to her patterns. And I think if you get any of her sock patterns now, her more recent sock patterns, they include that information. Or even if you don't like pattern socks, she now has a basic vanilla recipe, and that includes that in there. Despite the fact I don't do it from those instructions and I don't have that pattern, I kind of feel bad telling too detailed how to do that, as I'm fairly sure that's what she does in her pattern. But I mean, she's got brilliantly written instructions, I'm sure, because I have other of her patterns. And the other advantage is that she's also written it for toe up knitters, which obviously has to be different. Anyway, so these, I will write down the colour number of this in the show notes because I don't have the tag around with me, I'm sorry. I did knit these a couple of months ago. But I would say, I think these were called Twilight or something. Some of them have names, but not, the name isn't always written on the tag, it's on the website. Anyway, it was my first time using the any of the design line of the Regia yarns, and I really enjoyed it. I love that it feels sturdy, the Regia yarn, and I also like a lot that it's a touch plumper than some fingering weight yarns that you get, especially from indie dyes. Just the different bases, I guess, and it's not merino also. And because of that reason, I use 2.5mm needles rather than my usual 2.25. And they were a lot of fun to knit. I can't remember anything special about them other than what I explained about the heel. They're a little longer than my foot because they're for someone who has slightly larger feet. So that's that finished object. And the other finished object I wanted to show you is something that I finished a few months ago also, but is going to be my next design that I'm going to be releasing. It's currently in testing. Testers are meant to finish this week, and so I anticipate releasing it, if not next week, very soon after, but definitely in May. And this is a collaboration I did with the lovely La Belle Bouclette. I'm afraid my French pronunciation is not perfect. Yarn company, which are based in Canada, and they have their own goats, and they make their mohair yarn from their very own goat farm. And this is the yarn that I used for the shawl, and it's a beautiful undyed yarn. They do also dye this yarn. And this is their tag, so you can see La Belle Bouclette. And the particular yarn that I was using is this Trillium, which, if I remember correctly, they told me if it's not the national flower of Canada, then it's the flower of their region of Canada. I'm sorry that I don't remember exactly. And anyway, this is a fingering weight yarn. I would say it's a slightly plump fingering, just maybe perhaps because of the halo, as often is the case with mohair. And this particular yarn is, as I said, a fingering weight, and you get 385 meters, in this case in 125 grams. Now, because they make their own yarn, and I think they've had to deal with different mills over the years, each sort of batch, each season, they do have slight variations in the amount of yardage you get per the weight. So sometimes they have slightly heavier skeins, sometimes slightly lighter skeins, but the quality is always there, and it has a beautiful sheen to it. This one is 75% merino, 25%, sorry, totally the wrong way around, 75% mohair and 25% merino. And even for me, I'm really sensitive. I mean, I can't really wear alpaca. I find alpaca quite itchy. I can wear merino and cashmere without problems. And other wool, just normal, when it just says wool, probably, up close to my face, I don't really tolerate that. I can wear it in a jumper, and I can wear it in socks. This, it's so incredibly soft. So if you're not someone who doesn't like anything fuzzy, then, I mean, you already know that you don't like mohair. But this, the way it's spun, it doesn't have that huge halo like you get for, the kid silk type blends. Just, I guess, because of the way it's spun, and maybe because it's spun with the merino. But it's incredibly soft, and the sheen, it feels like silk. It really does. And I designed a shawl for them. This is going to be called the White Aram shawl. I will show it a bit closer up. So I did two sizes. So this is the shawlette, which takes one skein. And I also did a larger shawl version. I haven't knit one myself, but I have a test knitter knitting one. And that will take, I would expect, the best part of 2 skeins. And this is another one of my shawl designs, which is knit from tip to tip. So you never have very long rows. You never have hundreds of stitches on your needles. I can't remember. I never seem to be able to. I guess because I have lots of different designs going on at the same time. So I don't think, maybe this reaches 100 stitches. I'm not even sure. You know, that's the longest part for the shawlette, although it's still quite, you know, a nice depth for a shawl. The shawl size, the bigger one, will obviously have more stitches. But you cast on over here. And then this is knit so that you've got the border, everything's knit in one piece. So there's no adding applied borders or what have you later. So the top, all running along the top, you have this cable and twisted stitch design. The body is in stocking stitch, and on the edge you have, sorry, I'm not managing to show this very well, excuse me. You know what it is, I'm trying not to dunk it in my drink. Maybe I should just move my drink. And along the bottom here you have this lace design here. Now I will say that this shawl was worn a lot by my daughter this weekend. We took it with us to the wedding, and she's worn it before. So it's not, you know, it's not freshly blocked. It's been worn a lot. So that's why I had struggled a bit there to show you the lace close up. But I just find that this has a lovely weight to it. It's a little, it's as light as any other shawl knit with the same, you know, amount of yarn, but it's so cozy. And I often wear it round like this. And what I do find, this edging here does, if you want to, curl that way, you know, sort of curl back on itself quite easily, but it doesn't always stay like that. So what I tend to do is curl it over around my neck and then down, excuse me while my hair's everywhere, and then it lies nicely on the front there. And I like, that is wonderful just to keep you cozy just on an evening. And if I'm out and about, I also think that this works. Despite being a more classic design shawl, it also works quite nicely, sort of tucked up as a little bandana style one. And then you have your, you know, you put your coat on, and it just keeps you really, really cozy around the neck, just to stave off any chills. It's quite warm in here today, so I'm going to take it off again now. But I will obviously announce when that's available on Ravelry, and I know that La Belle Bouclette will be doing also kits for it on their website, both with this undyed yarn and also whichever colours they're dyeing up at the moment. So all that information will be around. Okay. So those are all the finished objects I wanted to show you today. And I haven't got a huge amount in the way of whips because what with planning for the trip and then making the trip, I didn't work at all on my meandering shawl. I don't find brioche to be that taxing, but it does require a certain, not even amount of attention or concentration for me, but a certain amount of feeling that I can sit down and knit more than just one row. Otherwise I find brioche quite frustrating. It's not something that I can just knit one row of. Anyway, so I brought with me on the trip a design project which is almost finished, so I'm really looking forward to showing that off soon. And I brought along with me these socks which I showed you last time. So these socks are hedgerow yarns, just to show you again. That's her tag. And this lovely tweed sock base in the foxglove colourway. I'm knitting this on 2mm higher steel needles, 2 at a time. I complained last episode about how I really don't enjoy 2mm needles. They're just too fiddly for me. My ideal needle is a 2.25, and a 2mm needle, often I just find that I get even looser gauge with it. Anyway, so these are just simple 2 at a time vanilla socks. I'll show them this way around. It's not particularly interesting, but it is beautiful. I do love how this yarn is working up. These are not for myself, but I did try them on yesterday just to make sure that, I don't know, everything was going fine. And they're so incredibly soft, so cozy. And these again, so these I did a twisted rib along the top. And again, I've done a German short row heel, and I have done, maybe in this case you can see slightly better, the little triangle here for the, oh, my usual not being able to understand. This little extra gusset there. So anyway, these are for a friend of mine who has slightly shorter feet, smaller, yeah, feet than myself. So I actually need to find somewhere my sock ruler. Oh, actually, it should be here. Perhaps I can also show that off now. So I need to measure them and check them on the foot size chart I have to see if I'm already ready to put in the toe. I think I'm not far off, to be honest. So this is my sock ruler. I bought this from Rosie's Moments in the UK. It's got this lovely little sheep at the top. And on one side, it's got all your shoe measurements. It's got all the measurements in inches and all the sort of standard shoe sizes in UK, because this is a UK company. And on the other side, it's in centimeters, and you've got the European standard shoe sizes. So yeah, if those of you have never used a sock ruler, I really do. I really enjoy them, and I use them because it's really hard to lie, sock down nicely and flat and measure it. In this case, you just stick it in right up to the heel, and you can see how long the foot is. So in this case, my foot is about 17 centimeters long. So I know that I probably need to do perhaps another centimeter, and I can start the toe. And those socks live in my lovely project bag from my lovely friend Philippa, which I again showed off last time. And my sock ruler lives in here with my little Ann Budd gauge ruler. This is a really lovely tool. I don't use it when I'm probably measuring gauge for like a sweater or a jumper, something that I really, really want to be really sure of. But I do anything where you don't need to be quite so accurate, and certainly for socks and what have you, I do use this a lot. And I bought this from Tracy of Nora George Yarns. She sells them on her website. They do fly out the stock, but I really, really enjoy it. And so that lives together with my sock ruler. So the other whip that I wanted to show you is something that I mentioned in dream knitting last time round. I think I couldn't quite resist. I had no garments on my needles, and I really needed to get something started. And for me, garments are not something that I start and rush through and finish the garment anytime soon. But knowing I have one on the needles that's there to work on is really important for me, because when you want to just sit down and know that you're getting progress on a really big item, getting started is a lot of the time. So living here in this beautiful bag, which I think I showed last time but didn't say who it was from. Unfortunately, I always get confused. So this is from a bag maker who was called Yarn Seller Studios, and she's changed her name. And I feel like she's called Cabin Creek Creations, but I could be wrong. I did link it in the project notes last time, even though I didn't mention it, and I will link it again this time, so you'll be able to see if you're really interested. She makes lovely bags, which are incredibly good value, and so this is her medium bag, and it's really, really generous. It's got a lovely long tag also with the D-ring, and this has this lovely fabric inside. So I am half Irish, and I couldn't resist this one. So this is the So Faded sweater by Andrea Renee Knits, Andrea Mowry. But before you get all excited, I'm doing it in one colour. Sorry, I haven't got the pattern here, but I think everyone's seen it. It is, at the end of the day, a fairly simple top-down raglan, which just has garter stitch detailing on the sleeve cap, and all the rest is knit in stocking stitch. And I was just looking for a lovely, simple pattern just like that, which I would sort of trust the sizing on, to use this lovely yarn that I had from the Plucky Knitter. This is, I spoke about last time, so I will just say briefly, it's called Oxford. They don't have this particular yarn anymore because they have Oxford 2.0, but they're both 75-25 merino cashmere blends, and it's non-superwash. This is the colourway Strawberry Wine, and the colour is fairly true, but it is darker than that. It's a bit darker than that. So I had to swatch for this several times and had to order new needle tips. And anyway, now I'm where I want to be. So actually I've stuck in here all these new needle tips and cords that I bought. Shouldn't really be in here. Oh well, they are for now. So I have 3 skeins of this. I'm not alternating skeins because they look incredibly similar to me. I think what I probably will do is when it gets to the end of a skein, I will blend in, and I'll do the thing of saving a little bit for the sleeves so that I'll have a few rows of at least blending or fading. So then maybe there will be some fading in this sweater but they look so similar that I didn't feel that I should alternate skeins. Let's hope I don't regret that. Anyway, so I have got this far. So I have, I think, another 20 or so rows to go before I separate for the sleeves. I could be wrong. It's a bit hard to show it off like this, obviously, but you can see the garter stitch on the sleeves, and the rest is stocking stitch. So at some point, once I separate for the sleeves, it'll probably be easier to show it off. And I've got my little chocolate eclair progress keeper there, which is from Sucre Miniatures. I adore chocolate eclairs. Fresh cream chocolate eclairs. That's important. So I've enjoyed knitting on it so far. Pattern's well written, and I think many other people are out there knitting far more beautiful versions than I am right now, but I'm fine with that. This is what I wanted to make. Oh, and after telling you that I had to get new high sharps, what size are they? So I'm on high sharps 3.5mm. So the pattern called for 3.75 to be the main needle and 3.25 for the later ribbing. So I've gone down to 3.5 for the main needle. So it's a 3mm for the ribbing. And yeah, I expect this to be a pretty long-term project. And that's fine. That's how I tend to do things with my garment knitting, unless it's something that's to do with designing. So I just wanted to show off a couple of things from Stash, and then I had a little bit of news regarding the cowl for my Patronus shawl. But first of all, I did have one thing arrive in the post that wasn't needles last week, and that is this beautiful skein from Nora George Yarns. I sound like a broken record, but it's a beautiful broken record, so I don't care. In one of her updates in the last couple of weeks, she's been having some beautiful, beautiful spring updates. I mean, amazing, amazing colours, which I have spoken to her about an order I'd like to place with her in the future for some of these yarns, and she will keep me posted on when she's dyeing up certain colourways. I feel very lucky to call Tracy a friend. Anyway, this is her apple blossom. It's getting blown out there. How do I stop it getting so blown out? That's a bit better. But it is a touch ever so slightly darker than that, a bit more green. It's a beautiful apple green with these little flecks of pink. Some places some yellow, some places a little bit darker green. This is on her 100% superwash merino singles base. It's just beautiful. And I couldn't resist. So that will be something by itself, or possibly 2-colour shawl. Excuse me while I take a sip of Fanta. I never used to like Fanta when I was younger. Now I love it. Yeah, no fancy tea today. It's too warm here for me to be drinking my tea. Anyway, so lots of crinkling, sorry. And another little, well, I guess all of you know by now, the first shawl of the Shawl Society 2 has been released. I did subscribe to the Shawl Society. I don't have time to knit another shawl right now, but I was really struggling. I think it's called the Fairy Hill or the Fairy Hills shawl. Beautiful crescent-shaped shawl with varying sort of layers of lace. An option for beading, but I wouldn't do that. And I think the reason I'm struggling so much not to cast it on is that one of the yarns that is called for is a yarn that I have in fairly decent abundance in my stash, which is this wonderful yarn from Eden Cottage Yarns, and it's the Milburn 4-ply, which is a 85-20, no, it's not 85-20, of course it can't be 85-25, can it? Because that would be 110%. Dear, oh dear, Madeline. It is 85% Blueface Leicester, 15% silk. Excuse my horrendous nails there. And I have a sweater's quantity of this. So also if I made a shawl in it, I would maybe only just have a sweater's quantity of it left. And that would be a shame. But I am struggling, but I don't think I'm going to cast that on, not right now. But I did have to mention it because it's so lovely. And if you haven't seen it, go and take a look. And if you're not signed up to the Shawl Society and you do like Helen Stewart's designs or you do like shawls, then really, really go and check it out. It's so lovely. So another thing I wanted to mention is that in my very first episode, I showed off this lovely project bag. Isn't it stunning? And this I actually bought on Instagram because the bag maker didn't have a shop yet, but she does have a shop now. She's Jessie Marie Makes. And this is her beautiful little card that came attached to an order I recently placed, which I'm going to show. So I'm going to show you so you can see these beautiful owls. Oh, love owls. Beautiful. Anyway, and I wanted to show this bag again and make a quick correction because, so it's sort of this lovely cotton canvasy material on the outside and what would feel like a normal cotton to me, non-sewist, the beautiful foxes, if you remember, on the inside. And I had said that to me it didn't feel like it was interfaced. You know, I have many other project bags which either are quite squishy, you know, almost like a quilt, and others which are less, but you can tell that there's interfacing because they're made with fairly thin cotton and they don't just have the feeling of 2 layers of cotton. And because of the canvas, I thought that this wasn't interfaced, but she told me, she watched the episode and she told me that there is a light interfacing there between the 2 layers, so I just wanted to correct myself on that. You can't see what's inside, sorry. But I think appropriately, as I featured that bag on my very first episode of the podcast, and now that I'm preparing, given that the cowl for the Patronus shawl has kicked off on May 1st, and is running till June 15th. You can find all the details about it in my Ravelry group. Given that has kicked off, I was thinking about prizes. And so I went to place an order in her new Etsy shop for a bag to be one of the prizes for the cowl. And I was really excited to do that because I really like nearly all of the bags that she has and all the fabrics. And there was a slight issue with shipping to Switzerland, that when I put a couple of things in my cart and the shipping was really, really expensive. And I said, she'd already shipped me something, and I went before she was on Etsy, and so I guess it was an Etsy problem. So I sent her a message on Instagram, and she told me, oh yeah, that shouldn't be like that. It must be, I'll sort it out. And within an hour, within less than an hour, I had placed my order because she'd fixed that. And she'd also said very kindly, oh, well, if you're ordering for the prize for the giveaway, she gave me a little discount. So I bought this lovely bag as a prize for the giveaway, and it is again the same size, a medium-sized bag. It is very generous, definitely a 2 skein. I mean, it would fit 3 skeins in, but it's a 2 skein project bag, I would say, possibly 3. And it's got a lovely sort of it is a lavender, slightly bluish, with polka dots on the inside. And I just love the black sheep, you know, with the sheep there. So I ordered this bag, and I also got a few little progress keepers and stitch markers. I think what I'll do is that I'll split those up. Some will go with the bag and some will go with the other prize. So I can just show here, I got these little stitch markers, which are these Singer, you know, old-fashioned sewing machines. I should show one. Oh, doesn't want to be shown. There we go. And these are some progress keepers, all of baking supplies. So you've got a spoon. Oh no, sorry, this is the afternoon tea. I have a baking set, that's it. Afternoon tea, a slice of cake, beautiful teapot, and a cupcake, which I should show the other side of. And these are all progress keepers size. Oh, lovely little packaging. And she said, when I said I was going to order some progress keepers for myself, sorry, stitch markers for myself, it's okay if you don't apply the discount. She said no, she'd she gave these to me for free. So that was very, very kind of her. So I got the baking set. So I've got the cupcake and the whisk, which is this one. Oh yeah, the measuring jug. Cookbook, love that one. And the mixer. And she put these in this beautiful, beautiful little pouch. So very kind. Thank you so much. So I will of course link her shop again on the in the show notes, and this beautiful, beautiful bag will be one of the prizes for the cowl. So I won't go over every single detail about the cowl here again. I haven't got my shawl to show off to you. Nora Georgians did another shawl kit update, which I think it's all gone now. There may be a couple left on her website for a couple of the colorways, so do go and check that out if you are really if you were interested and didn't realize that she'd done her final update for that. But the cowl runs from May 1st till June 15th, and so make sure you enter your finished objects for a prize, and I probably will also draw a couple of probably pattern prizes from the chatter thread as well. But I think a bit later on we'll have some more details about other possible prizes. So that was all of my definite stuff that I wanted to show you in terms of knitting and a bit of admin. And last time I had mentioned talking a little bit about needles. So as I still got about 5-10 minutes to speak, I will just give you a little rundown on my needles that I tend to use and what I have used, just in case that might be of use to anybody. So this is a great big messy bag that I have here, where I don't just obviously keep needles in, some little buttons in there. And a hair clip. You always need hair clips, don't you? I do. And in here, this bag came with my first ever interchangeable needle set. So when I very, very first restarted knitting, when I decided to sort of teach myself basically on the internet with YouTube, I did go out to the shop, a local little shop here, to a haberdashery section, and I got plain old. I got some plastic needles, and then I went back again. I got some metal needles, all straights. And at some point, someone had said something wonderful about, oh, but they're so horrible, use bamboo needles. So I had at least one of each of these in straights, and I did use those to learn how to knit and what have you. And I knit a couple of projects, full finished projects using straight needles. And then I started reading a little bit more, and I, saw that a lot of people talk about circular needles and use circular needles, and I thought that made sense. And I think I bought one circular needle in the shop here, which was, I think they had plastic tips and a plastic cord, a fixed circular, and it wasn't great fun to work with. The cord was horrible, sorry. But it made me understand that, circular needles are not just for knitting in the round, but you can knit back and forth on circular needles. And then I just jumped straight in, and I did do some research, and I bought a kit from, an interchangeable needle kit from Knit Pro. So I'm 99% sure are called Knitter's Pride in North America, but in Europe they're called Knit Pro. And I bought so this is an example of this is Knit Pro. Oh, a lot of glare there, sorry, Knit Pro. I can't remember if it was a deluxe kit or a standard kit, but I got the Symphony needles, which are these ones with this lovely, which are birchwood, with this lovely colouring on them. They have a fairly decent taper to them. This is a bigger needle. This is something like a 5mm needle. They've got a fairly decent taper on them there. And these screw into all different cable sizes. And you also get extenders to make cables even longer. These are these guys down here. And I think, a lot of people have talked about these kits, as far as I've seen. They come with everything you need for them, and they have pretty good joints. The joints are not always perfect, and in this kit that I had ordered, at least one of the needles, one of the tip needles, did have a poorly worked thread, so the thread on the inside. here that screws onto, so that screws onto the cable, and so it didn't screw on, it just kept turning and turning. So I had to get another set of tips to have that size in a full set, and I think that's an example here. You see they're two different colours. So here I can buy Knit Pro needles just in the shop, sort of, I don't know, the equivalent, let's say, of a John Lewis, not as nice as a John Lewis, but you know, a department store. They do sell the Knit Pro compatible needle tips, but they don't have the nice, beautiful colours. They're just like this. But they have, I mean, they're a tiny bit less slippery, I think. I really, really like the Symphony needles. I still use them quite a lot. And they have a decent cable. It's, you know, it's not the most flexible cable, but sometimes that's a good thing. And I haven't knit socks with them because I don't have them in those sizes, in the very small sizes. But I've knit other things, magic loop, with them without problem. And I was also keen to know a little bit more, and one of the reasons I think I like the Knit Pro set idea a lot was that they do a lot of different needle materials. So you can have the kit, you can have all your cables, and you can buy different tips. And something else really good that they do is that they have these little starter kits. So they have 2 starter kits. They have starter kits which have not very many needles in them, but they also have something which isn't just called a starter kit. Maybe it's called a sample kit, where you get 3 different needle materials. And they have 2 different kits of these. And I bought one of those kits where in the needle set you got, excuse me, these needle tips. So you got a carbon's set of needle tips in 3mm in this case. Bamboo, these got dyed blue by some yarn that I was working with. It was very blue. So bamboo in 3.5mm, and the Nova, Knit Pro Nova, in the cubic one. So these ones are squared all around the side, in 4mm. So you get 3 different needle sizes and 3 different materials. And I think that's really, really good, especially for someone who still doesn't, maybe they don't know that they've got the right needles for them yet, and it's sort of an inexpensive way to quickly try lots of different materials. And I got this set because the other set had, I think, marbles, which are the plastic ones, which I've heard are wonderful, but I haven't tried them, and a set of the symphonies, the wooden symphonies, and maybe a metal one. And I wanted this one because I didn't have any of these. And I can say I've used the metal needles and the cubics. I don't mind the cubics style. I don't know if I find them more comfortable now that I do have other metal needles, but they're certainly decent. They're fairly blunt though for my standards, but I have knit a whole sweater on them. The bamboo I don't particularly like because they've got a lot of drag, but every now and then I have used them, especially for swatching, and sometimes they're useful for, swatching for designs, not for gauge. And I think they could be useful potentially for, I do have a couple of silk skeins, perhaps these would be useful, but they're blue now, which is annoying. Which is not the needle's fault, that's the yarn's fault that I used them with. And the carbons. So the carbons I have also knit a whole project on, and I find they do feel hard in my hands. Again, they're small needles, they're 3mm needles, so that could be part of it. They're very, very hard. They are more draggy than I would like. I love the tip on them. The tip is very nice and pointy with a decent taper. It's not super sharp, but it's really lovely. But you have such a lovely tip, and then you have this little draggy section here. Mine have no problems with joins or what have you. I can't say I'm never going to use them again, but I don't love them. I prefer the wood because they've got a good taper, and they have a consistent amount of drag on the whole needle, and I prefer that. So that's my Knit Pro needles. I then started deciding I wanted to try knit socks, and so I had to buy fixed circulars. Now there are available interchangeable sock kits from both ChiaoGoo and Haya. I haven't tried either of those, so I have some fixed circulars. I haven't got them all here because some of them are in use, but I have ChiaoGoo certainly 2.25mm needles in a 100cm cable, and I have Haya Sharps and Haya Steels, all in similar styles. This instead is one that I bought for shawl knitting. So this is a 3.25mm Chaogu needle. I tend to buy, if I'm buying fixed circulars, I tend to buy 100cm length because that's good both for 2 at a time socks for when they're smaller needles. It's good, and it's good for magic loop, and it's also good for flat knitting back and forth, especially for shawls. And these are the red lace needles. So Chaogu have 2 finishes for their metal needles. They have what's called the knit red, and that has a less pointy tips, and they have the lace. I'm trying to get this without glare. There we go. And these are very, very pointy, but not super sharp. So they're very pointy. They'll get into all the stitches you need them to. They have a very long taper, but they're not sharp. And I wouldn't say many people are going to hurt themselves on them. They have the Chaogu cable, which is the memory-less cable. I love it personally. Some people don't, but I really, really like it. I've never had any problems with it. I love the feel of it. And there is a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of drag on Chaogu needles. I think they have this brushed metal finish, and I like that. I think when you've got a really slippery yarn, maybe a fingering weight yarn with some silk in it, the higher sharps or steels are very, very slick needles. I enjoy them for everything else, but sometimes they're a bit slippy. So this is an example. This is a high high steel I have in 2.5mm. I'm going to compare it with this high sharp I have in 2.75 for you. So highers have different colours on their cables, and I believe that the colour is based on the needle size, right? When you buy the fixed circular, sorry, not when you buy the kit. The kit will come with these blue. But when you have fixed circulars, the cable size tells you the needle size. So here, if you see next to each other, you can see that there's a much longer taper on the sharp, and it goes to a sharper point. This is a steel and has a blunter point, but still a decent taper. And instead the sharp has got, which is this one here, this is the sharp, has got more of a taper to it and a sharper point. For sock knitting, in general, I like both of them. The sharps and the steels are both good. For overall knitting, when I ordered my higher sharp interchangeable set, I have ordered the sharp tips. And it doesn't mean I would rule out getting steels, but I'm not someone who touches the needle tips when I knit, not in a consistent way. So some people, always push on the needle tip to remove stitches, to slide stitches off the needles or what have you. And I don't do that. So they don't really bother me that much. And so that's why I went and I got a higher sharp interchangeable set. I'm not going to show this to you exhaustively. Other people have shown these off, and you can see other reviews. I've got various needles in use at the moment. The cables are in the back here. It doesn't come with that many cables. So compared to the Knit Pro kits, which come with a decent number of cables, these just come with one cable in each standard length. For me, it's okay, that's what they put in there, but I ordered more cables, and I think most people would want more cables. Also, these are the 5-inch tips, and it does come with the cable which would make the 40 centimetre or 16-inch circular, but you can't knit on that with 5mm tips. It's not comfortable. You need the 4-inch tips for that, which maybe I'll get some 4-inch tips. Anyway, so you've got all the tips here, and they're all beautiful, lovely, slick and pointy. And the joins are amazing. And one thing I didn't know would be the case with the higher sharp interchangeables, or the fixed doesn't happen with the interchangeables. Once you've screwed the tip into the cable, the whole metal part rotates around the cable. So you don't get that problem that you get your cable all weirdly twisted and you have to sort of twist your needles, which you do with many other needles. So I was really, really, really impressed with that. I think value for money, yes, they're not the very, very cheapest needles out there, but for how good the quality is and for my knitting style, they're amazing value. I have tried, these are Lang, which basically means, which are Addies for the Americans. These are Addie lace, these are the brass tips, which again, for being a thick, so these were for when I had to do a thicker lace project, they have a very, very good taper on them. And I do enjoy them, but they have more drag than the high sharps. So I will link at least the names of these brands that I've mentioned, and the specific kits where applicable. I did also get not in a swap, in the Get Your Yarn Wishes granted on Instagram last year. One of the things I said is that I wanted to try 9-inch circulars, and my friend, my Instagram friend Vicky, who's Vicky Bird Designs, sent me these, which I think she had tried. These are 2mm ChowGoo red lace, so these have the less pointy tip, 9-inch circulars. I have knit a whole pair of socks on these. They were the fastest pair of socks I ever knit, but I didn't find the whole process massively enjoyable. Given that I know I'm not the biggest fan of 2mm needles, I am still on the lookout to try perhaps either a higher sharp or a ChowGoo 2.25mm 9-inch circular, just to see. I wouldn't use them all the time because I do enjoy knitting 2 at a time, but I did like the fact that you just knit round and around and around and around, and you're not adjusting your needles and what have you, even if it was a little strange. So I'm not, oh, I hate 9-inch circulars, but I'm also not, oh, I love them, which most people seem to love or hate them. So I'm somewhere in between on that for now. So maybe that's of no use or interest to anybody. Maybe even if it is to one person, that's enough for me, and it means that I've probably got somewhere that I can refer people to if they ask me about my needles. If they're really interested, they can watch this episode. So I'm sorry if I just wobbled the table there. I think that's enough for today. Next time hopefully will not be too long. I seem to be getting into a rhythm of about 10 days. I think it might be able to fit one in next week, but more probably it's going to be 2 weeks from now. Anyway, so I will say happy knitting to everybody. I hope everyone is enjoying the start of May. I certainly am. And if you want to get in on the Patronus Cal, then be sure to head over to the group. And that's it. That's everything for now. Bye.